is first being developed for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So each drug, when it's first developed, must have a single indication, a single disease that it is first getting labeled for. So the Duchenne community and research community and stakeholder community really initiated Vamorolone 10, 12 years ago, and now it's finished its last trial, at least for registration just recently. And so the goal is that that then gets assembled into a package for labeling of Vamorolone for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So we've been talking for 3-4 years now with JDM community, research community, and with Cure JM about possibly developing Vamorolone for myositis or JDM specifically. And that included we got a grant together some years ago from the National Institutes of Health to sort of lay the groundwork in terms of biomarker studies, so blood signatures of the drug working, which could facilitate drug development in JDM. And so that work was completed and published. And we were really just looking through and planning for JDM for about a year or two as far as a clinical trial. But again, it's hard to trigger a trial until you know the drug works first in your primary indication or your first indication. And so that work was really just completed just, in fact, last weekend, where in our double-blind, placebo-controlled phase 3-like clinical trial in Duchenne, that we hit our primary outcome and multiple secondary outcomes, and the data looks quite compelling, that we are improving strength across all motor outcomes in Duchenne children. So that then lays the groundwork to now get more serious with regards to kicking off a JDM study. So we've been working first with Lauren Packman in Lurie Children's, and that the biomarker studies were done with her. And then more recently with Duke University and a number of investigators there. And so we've been evolving a design, so we're sort of at the point of securing funds and submitting an IND. So you need to submit to the FDA what's called an investigational new drug, an IND. Well, you'd say we already have that for Duchenne and this drug. We do, but you need a new IND for JDM for Vamorolone. So really that's the next step. Once we have a design of a trial, you need that to go to the FDA and say, here's our first clinical study in JDM in the context of an IND application to FDA. And that's what we're now preparing. There's multiple ways that are different drugs that are used to treat JDM. And one of those is corticosteroids. And corticosteroids like prednisone or dexamethasone or deflazacort are all a class of drug called corticosteroids that all have a similar mechanism of action, and they're potent anti-inflammatories. And often JDM patients take relatively high levels of corticosteroids and might have to take them for an extended period of time. And with that, corticosteroid class of drugs are well known to have a series of side effects. In children, that includes stunting of growth, so their growth is slowed, gaining weight, brittle bones, mood disturbances, so volatile or bad moods that it can be hard to control, sleep disturbances, and it's actually quite an extensive list of side effects that have been known since the 1950s. In fact, the Nobel Prize for corticosteroids as a drug was in 1950, and even there, the public speech of the Nobel Committee said, do something about the side effects, because they're, particularly in older people with bone, can really shorten lifespan because of bone breaks. So there's a need of patients, physicians, and families to find alternatives that do not carry that burden of side effects, particularly those that limit the quality of life of children. And the children themselves feel that the stunting of growth, the weight gain, and also another one that bothers children is hirsutism, which is excessive facial hair growth or hair growth. And that's another side effect of corticosteroids. So vamorolone was developed as a first-in-class, so it's different from all the corticosteroids structurally. And so how it binds its target receptor, which is the glucocorticoid receptor, is also slightly different. And that causes a series of structure-activity relationships, how the drug works, and these are all published, and it seems to separate out the efficacy from the side effects. So we seem to be able to retain much or most of the efficacy and the anti-inflammatory activity, which is why they're prescribed in JDM, to stop the inflammation of muscle, but seem to have lost many or most of the side effects. Like we see no stunting of growth, even after kids have been on this for 2.5 years. And we're assessing a lot of the other, both short-term and long-term safety concerns. But so far, it looks like the safety profile is better with vamorolone than it is with corticosteroids.